When I was reborn to the moment Shawn Cavendish proposed divorce for the second time, I didn't hesitate for a second before signing the divorce papers. Shawn didn't know that 1 year later, the Cavendish family would suffer massive financial losses due to betrayal from their headquarters executives. The situation worsened as business rivals joined forces against them, ultimately ending in bankruptcy. The once glorious Cavendish family fell from grace overnight. Shawn, the heir to the empire, became a penniless man reduced to living in a basement and eating instant noodles. Back then, I truly loved him and was willing to endure hardships by his side. Even if he had nothing left, just being with him was enough to make me content. But I never imagined that even at this point, Shawn still only had eyes for his unforgettable first love. Even when I was pregnant and giving birth, he abandoned me, a woman diagnosed by doctors as a high-risk mother, to take care of his first love's child. In the end, my child and I died on the operating table because we couldn't get his signature in time, while his first love's child merely had a mild cold. Clara, stop making a scene and just sign the papers. What's the point of continuing this loveless marriage? I know you've wasted your youth staying with me all these years, so I won't treat you unfairly. I'll provide enough material comforts to ensure you live in luxury for the rest of your life, something many people could never achieve even after a lifetime of hard work. Shawn initially sounded somewhat remorseful, but by the time he said these words, his tone carried an air of condescension and charity. I was just a girl from an ordinary family, truly not Shawn's social equal. Back then, I was blindly infatuated and never considered anything else. Deep down, I believed I wanted nothing from Shawn. Even after marriage, I worked hard to support myself without touching the living expenses he provided. Privately, I thought this would maintain equality between us, keeping my purest love for him untainted by money. I never bothered to uncover Shawn's true thoughts. Looking back now, it's no surprise he felt this sense of superiority. Shawn had never truly respected me, I was merely companionship for his lonely moments. Then thank you, Mr. Cavendish, for allowing an ordinary person like me to rise to prominence overnight, I said with a smile. Having lived a second life, these words weren't sarcastic but carried genuine sincerity. The bankruptcy of the Cavendish family and the hardships I endured with Shawn taught me the importance of money. Once a love-struck fool gains clarity, they truly awaken to reality. Those past experiences have dissipated like smoke, nothing compares to the tangible wealth in hand. Men may betray you, but money never will. Shawn was the first man I ever loved. During high school, when he rescued me from upperclassmen who were bullying me, he seemed like a god. I fell for him with unwavering devotion, hopelessly and irrevocably, even though his heart belonged to another girl, his unattainable white moonlight. Still, I silently adored him. When his white moonlight abandoned him to go abroad, he married me out of spite, heartbroken and disillusioned. I didn't mind, I was overjoyed to register our marriage. I thought that even if Shawn didn't love me, my sincerity and devotion would eventually move him. After more than 8 years of marriage, over 3,000 days and nights, I took care of him, cared for him, and stayed by his side. Even after he went bankrupt and ruined his kidneys from drinking in despair, I gave him one of my own. Even a stone would have warmed up by then. But the moment his white moonlight from abroad returned after her divorce, crying pitifully in front of him, he immediately chose to forgive her. Then he placed the divorce papers before me, firmly declaring he wanted a divorce. In my past life, when Shawn presented the divorce papers, I couldn't believe it and refused to sign no matter what. Shawn probably knew I needed time to accept the truth, so he gave me some space. But a month later, he brought up divorce again. Perhaps seeing how utterly heartbroken I was, Shawn's conscience got the better of him. This time, the divorce terms he offered were far more generous. Not only did he give me an additional $20 million, but he also included the villa in the mid-levels and 2 prime commercial spaces, each over 300 square meters, in the city's largest shopping mall. Back then, my heart was solely fixated on this man who didn't love me, and I couldn't care less about material possessions. I stubbornly refused to divorce him. Shawn brought it up again and again, his attitude growing increasingly hostile, until the Cavendish family went bankrupt. Stripped of the means and status to care for his beloved, he stopped mentioning divorce altogether. He couldn't bear the thought of his white moonlight, Lila, suffering. Yet, after I stood by him through his darkest days and things began to turn around, once he regained his footing, he went right back to serving Lila hand and foot, even when I was in labor. I wonder if he felt even a flicker of remorse when he learned that both my child and I had died on the operating table. Clara, don't speak in anger. I genuinely want you to have a good life from now on. Look over the divorce agreement. If there's any clause you're unhappy with, just say so. I'll accommodate you, Shawn said gently. All these years, ever since I've been with him, it's the first time he's been so patient, just to coax me into signing the divorce papers. What a piece of work. How blind I must have been back then to fall for someone like this. Given a second chance at life, stripped of all the illusions from before, I look at Shawn's still handsome face and find it utterly repulsive, dripping with hypocrisy. Hearing Shawn's words, I picked up the divorce agreement on the table and scrutinized it carefully. Seeing that, aside from the assets he was dividing with me, he'd also provide me with an annual living allowance of $1 million, my mood improved considerably. Except, the Cavendish family is going bankrupt next year, installment payments are just empty promises. As long as I can get the money right now, I'd even be willing to give Shawn a discount. Clara, do you have any thoughts? Seeing me pore over the divorce agreement, Shawn didn't believe I actually wanted a divorce, he assumed I was stalling with some new tactic. Noticing my odd expression, he couldn't help but ask. I ignored Shawn's assumptions and pointed to a clause in the agreement. If we're divorcing, let's make it clean. No lingering ties. Skip the annual installments, just pay me the full amount in one go. After I finished speaking, seeing Shawn frozen, I added, I'm 29 this year. Even if I only live to 80, that's still 51 years left. I'll round it down, just give me 50 million. Clara. What's 50 million to you? It's practically nothing. If you're unwilling to pay, then this divorce is off. I deliberately said this, certain Shawn would assume I was just stalling. Fine, a lump sum it is. Clara, if you have any other demands, state them now. Hearing Shawn's words, my heart leapt with joy, I could hardly wait to sign and transfer the assets. But out loud, I said, Shawn, I've loved you all these years, wasted my youth on you. I'd do anything for you. Are you really going to divorce me for Lila, without a single thought for all we've shared? Once you sign, don't come crying with regrets. Lila had been putting in tremendous effort lately. Abandoned by her overseas husband and left with nothing, she had her sights firmly set on Shawn as her golden ticket, sweet-talking him into a daze until he was utterly devoted to caring for his pitiful white moonlight. Hearing my words, that hypocritical look of guilt resurfaced on Shawn's face, yet he still insisted firmly, Clara, I'm sorry, but I have no feelings for you. Besides, Clara is at her most vulnerable right now, she needs me. Shawn, don't you dare regret this. With the demeanor of someone deeply wounded, I swiftly and decisively signed the divorce papers through tears after Shawn had his secretary revise the agreement. Seeing me sign so decisively, Shawn, that masochistic bastard, actually gave me a suspicious glance and hesitated. Panicking internally, with fortunes and bright futures dangling right before me, I couldn't let this idiot change his mind now. Absolutely not. So I cried even more pitifully. As if out of spite, she slammed the pen down in front of Shawn, sign it right now. Once you sign, we'll go file for divorce immediately. There are plenty of good men in this world, do you really think I, Clara, can't live without you? Shawn truly believed I couldn't survive without him. In terms of looks, I had once been campus belle material, enough to attract bullies. Yet all these years, no matter how many good men pursued me, I never gave them a second glance, devoted heart and soul to Shawn alone, refusing to even look at other men. All those years of my blind devotion and lovesick foolishness had given him absolute confidence. The hesitant Shawn no longer had any doubts at this moment, convinced I was just acting out of anger. He seized the opportunity to sign the divorce papers immediately, probably thinking that if he hesitated even for a second, I might change my mind once my temper cooled. Watching this scene, I was practically trembling with excitement. A fortune was about to land in my lap, luxury apartments, villas, and shops all within reach. To hide my exhilaration, I rubbed my eyes even harder, reddening them until tears spilled out, terrified Shawn might notice my joy and reconsider. "Shawn, you heartless man, you, come on, let's go file for divorce right now. Whoever hesitates even a little isn't human." Grabbing Shawn's arm to drag him away, my tragically resolute expression made me feel like an Oscar-winning actress reborn. I'd always been so patient with Shawn, it was rare for me to lose my temper like this. "Clara, I'm sorry." Shawn nodded to his secretary, who immediately understood and made a call before bowing to Shawn. "Mr. Cavendish, the car is ready." I maintained an utterly despondent expression while waiting for Shawn to leave. Then his phone rang. "Shawn, come quick. Sophie fainted from a food allergy. I'm alone with her at the hospital." A woman's voice choked with sobs came through the phone, trembling with fear and panic, yet brimming with utter dependence. I recognized it instantly as Lila's voice. It was a sound she could never forget, even if she lived another lifetime. It had once been her deepest wound and recurring nightmare. "Lila, don't panic. I'm coming right now." Without a second thought, Shawn immediately responded to the voice on the other end, his face openly displaying urgency and heartache, even in front of me, his still legally wedded wife. "Clara, something's happened to Sophie. Lila's health has always been fragile, and she can't handle this alone. I have to go now." Shawn looked at me, his tone apologetic yet resolute. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. In the past, I would have been heartbroken and devastated. But this time I was furious, seething with rage. We were literally at the final step of the process, like a perfectly roasted duck served piping hot right before you, only for someone to snatch it away at the last moment. The sheer audacity of it was infuriating. "Shawn, what do you think this is? We're not going shopping or to an amusement park, we're going to file for divorce. And you still want to go find your Lila at a time like this? Clara, stop being unreasonable. Sophie is still so young and has lost her father. You should have some compassion." I was so angry I nearly had a heart attack. That bastard. If we weren't still married and had to go through the divorce proceedings, I'd have slapped him twice across the face right then and there. Without waiting for my response, Shawn immediately left with his secretary. I grabbed the divorce papers from the table, stuffed them into my bag, and hurried after him. "Drive," Shawn commanded as soon as he got into the car. I squeezed into the vehicle at the last moment before the door closed. "Clara, why are you coming along?" Shawn instinctively furrowed his brows, his face still wearing that same aloof, disdainful expression. "I want to see just how sick Lila's child is that it requires your personal attention. Could it be on the verge of death? In my past life, when I was in labor, Lila had used the same excuse to summon Shawn away. The situation had been described as so dire over the phone that Shawn left me without a moment's hesitation or consideration. Thinking of that child, connected to me by blood but denied even the chance to be born, dying inside me, waves of sorrow and hatred surged through my heart. "Clara, I know you hate Lila, but Lila and her child are innocent. They haven't done anything wrong. I told you from the beginning that I didn't like you. Targeting a child like this shows terrible upbringing. If you don't shut up immediately, get out of the car right now." Shawn had never been an easygoing person around me, his attitude was always ice cold. The slight softening earlier was only because he felt a twinge of guilt about the divorce. Now that he was worried about that bitch Lila's child, his patience was completely gone, his face dark with anger. The hatred in my heart grew deeper, but I forced it down. Otherwise, Shawn really would have kicked me out of the car. At this critical moment of divorce, how could I let him slip away? Besides, Shawn and Lila, that scumbag and bitch, would get what they deserved, but that didn't mean I couldn't collect some interest in advance. The rest of the ride passed in silence. As soon as we arrived at the hospital, Shawn rushed to the nurse's station to ask for Lila and her daughter's location, then hurried off, afraid of being even a second late. I followed behind and saw Lila and her daughter sitting there perfectly fine. Sophie, who was supposedly unconscious on the phone, was now sitting there with tears in her eyes. The mother and daughter wore the same pitiful expressions, and Sophie only had a few red rashes on her face. When Shawn arrived, Lila ran over, sobbing as she threw herself into his arms. "Woo-woo, Shawn, I was so scared. I was terrified. Sophie is my everything now. I was so afraid something might happen to her." Thankfully, she woke up after the doctor treated her. Listening from the side, I sneered inwardly. Allergic shock isn't unheard of, but with just a few measly rashes, not even mild symptoms, there's no way she could have fainted. Too bad Shawn, this blind and foolish man, had his brain clogged with crap and believed every word Lila said. Thinking of my innocent child from my past life, who could have been saved if not for this wretched woman, my eyes burned red with fury. I rushed forward and slapped Lila across the face several times. Lila hadn't even processed what was happening before she received several slaps across the face, completely stunned. Still seething with anger after slapping her, I grabbed her hair and landed a few more wild blows, the classic posture of a wronged wife beating up the mistress. Shawn never expected me to make such a move, so he didn't even attempt to stop me. When he finally reacted, his fury erupted. "Clara, what the hell are you doing? How dare you lay hands on Lila? Have you lost your mind?" Shawn's enraged expression suggested he might tear me apart any second, not only pulling me away from Lila but also preparing to strike me himself. "Come and see, everyone. Look at this shameless pair of scumbags carrying on their affair. Shawn, are you really going to treat your wife like this for the sake of that promiscuous woman who abandoned you years ago?" As the crowd gathered around us, I shouted loudly while glaring defiantly at Shawn, waiting for his slap to descend. This scandal was about to become even more explosive. Although I remained silent throughout the car ride to avoid being kicked out, I wasn't idle. I contacted several prominent journalists. Shawn being the heir to the Cavendish family, how could they possibly miss such a sensational story? By the time we arrived, they were probably already stationed around the hospital room, just waiting to capture some explosive footage. The incessant flashing of camera lights told me everything. The scene had undoubtedly been captured in its entirety. Clara could already envision tomorrow's headlines splashed across every tabloid. Cavendish heir Shawn caught cheating with mistress, current wife confronts love rival in dramatic showdown. Shawn, as the meticulously groomed heir of the Cavendish family, might have had his judgment clouded by Lila, but he wasn't a complete fool. Taking in the scene, realization dawned on him, and his raised hand froze mid-air. "Clara, this is all a misunderstanding. Stop making a scene, let's talk inside." Shawn's secretary immediately stepped forward, attempting to clean up the mess. But since I had orchestrated this deliberately, why would I let this farce end so easily? I won't go in there. Why should I share the same space with that shameless bitch? The very air is tainted. And that child of hers, already putting on airs at such a young age. Truly inherited her mother's homewrecker genes. Who knows how many husbands she'll ruin in the future? Clara, Sophie is just a child. How could you say such things to her? I know you've misunderstood my past relationship with Shawn, but we were truly innocent. Shawn only came to help us because he pitied Sophie for being so young without a father's care. Lila maintained her usual victim act, casting an accusing look at Clara while defending herself. Many who heard this couldn't help but show some sympathy. Lila, cut the crap. If you're so innocent, why were you throwing yourself into my husband's arms crying? Have you no sense of boundaries at all? Stop pretending to be some pure, delicate white lotus. The reason your daughter has no father isn't my fault, it's because of your shameless mother who fooled around. Your ex-husband got a paternity test done, realized she wasn't his biological child but just some bastard, and that's why he divorced you and kicked the kid out. If I were you, I'd be too ashamed to show my face in public. But instead, penniless and homeless, you set your sights on someone else's husband. With no shame or morals like yours, do you really expect me to be polite? I didn't even give Lila the chance to resolve things behind closed doors. I directly exposed her dirty secrets, laying bare this shameless homewrecker for all to see. Eyeing another woman's husband while still trying to maintain her pristine image? What a clever little scheme she had going. I was determined to rip off Lila's mask and force her to live under the world's disgust and scorn, leaving her no choice but to cower in the shadows like a rat scurrying across the street. A flicker of panic crossed Lila's face. She probably never expected me to know her true colors. Oh my God, this scandal just keeps getting juicier. The reporters scribbled furiously, and a surge of satisfaction rushed through me. Shawn's expression darkened to the extreme. He refused to believe a single word Clara said. In his eyes, his white moonlight was a pure, flawless woman who deserved nothing but the best in this world. Even when she had abandoned him back then, it must have been out of helplessness. Now that she was suffering so pitifully, and even being slandered by me, his heart must be aching unbearably right now. Clara, shut your mouth. If you slander Lila again, don't blame me for being rude. Shawn snarled at me, the warning in his eyes painfully obvious. Just when everyone expected me to continue exposing secrets, I chose to stay silent. I knew Shawn's limits all too well. If I pushed further, things would spiral out of control. After all, the divorce papers weren't finalized yet, and the Cavendish family hadn't fallen. It was enough to annoy Shawn moderately. Throwing myself into the fire was absolutely out of the question. At that moment, the Cavendish family's security team arrived, clearing the scene and restoring quiet to the hospital room, where Lila sobbed softly in feigned distress. Clara, you've misunderstood me so deeply, Lila said, then turned her innocent gaze toward Shawn. Shawn, believe me, it's not like that. I would never do such a thing. Lila, you don't need to explain to her. She's just blinded by jealousy. I stood silently by, thinking to myself, you're the real blind fool here, totally deserving to be led around by the nose by a woman like Lila. Shawn protectively wrapped his arm around Lila while glaring at me with venom. Clara, did you really think such tactics would make me reconsider our divorce? It only makes me despise you more. Time for my performance again, honey. I don't know what came over me. Everything I said earlier was just angry words. The thought of you leaving the hospital to divorce me just. I deliberately mentioned the word divorce. Such matters can easily go awry if delayed, and I'm sure Lila would be more than happy to facilitate this. She'd definitely lend me a hand. Lila didn't disappoint me. She launched into another round of persuasion with Shawn, and sure enough, the more she urged him, the firmer his resolve became. Lila, don't worry. I'll make sure to give you an answer. Since Sophie is fine, I'll take care of the important matter first and then come back to be with you. Lila nodded affectionately, her eyes brimming with emotion. Shawn, Sophie, and I will be waiting for you. Shawn stood up. Clara, let's go. Nothing can change the outcome of our divorce. If you know what's good for you, don't stir up any more trouble, otherwise, all the conditions I promised you before will be off the table. This threat truly frightened me, but I maintained a perfectly indifferent expression. Shawn, you know I've never wanted anything from you. Money is just worldly possessions, all I want is to be with you. Shawn dragged me into the car. Afraid I might refuse the divorce and run away, he even had bodyguards stationed around. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Half an hour later, the clerk asked, "Are you both certain about the divorce? Have you reached an agreement on asset division?" "We've reached an agreement and signed the paperwork," Shawn replied, only then realizing that in our rush to the hospital, we hadn't brought the divorce agreement. He immediately instructed his secretary to fetch it. Hearing Shawn say that, I took out the divorce agreement from my bag. No need, I brought it with me. Shawn gave me a surprised look, suspicion rising on his face again. After all, when Lila wasn't involved, Shawn still had some intelligence left. How could Clara seem more eager than him to get divorced? It was impossible. This woman must be playing some reverse psychology trick. He wouldn't let Clara succeed. Seeing Shawn hesitate to sign, I sneered. What, changed your mind about divorcing me? Do you suddenly think I'm better than your precious Lila and can't bear to let go? Nothing infuriated Shawn more than such words. How could he possibly care about a woman like me? Even if doubts lingered in his mind, he signed without hesitation. When the clerk stamped the papers and the divorce certificate was finally in my hands, I let out a huge sigh of relief, my entire body relaxing at last. However, I didn't let my excitement get the better of me. After all, I still had to wait for the assets listed in the agreement to be transferred to my name. If Shawn decided to make things difficult, I truly wouldn't have the power to resist. Before this, I had been worried that Shawn might change his mind and retract the conditions he'd offered. That scene at the hospital had indeed been a bit risky. "Clara, we're already divorced. I hope you won't bother me any more in the future. Take the assets I've given you and live a quiet life." I didn't argue and obediently left as Shawn demanded. Before leaving, I overheard Shawn instructing his subordinates to suppress the news. What happened at the hospital today couldn't be reported. Huh. Sitting in the taxi, I curled my lips slightly, with no intention of stopping him. After all, the groundwork was already laid here, ready to be uncovered at any time. It wouldn't be as fun if Lila's true colors were exposed too soon. Once Shawn and Lila were married and thoroughly tied together, I'd give them a special wedding gift, a bombshell that would surely blow Shawn's mind, making him realize just how thoroughly he'd been played. Right now, the most urgent matter is to handle the asset transfer as soon as possible. Early the next morning, I called Shawn's secretary. Shawn's secretary still sympathized with me, his ex-wife. After all, he had witnessed firsthand how I had treated Shawn all these years. When I called, they didn't give me any trouble and efficiently handled the property and shop transfers for me. Along with the $40 million Shawn promised as compensation and the $50 million in installments, a total of $90 million was deposited into my account. With the property and a hefty sum of money in hand, I calculated the timing and bought a stock 3 days later. In my previous life, I had stumbled upon an online story about a stock market legend, an investor who multiplied their investment 20-fold within 2 months. Back then, I had even checked which stock it was, never imagining I'd get a second chance at life. It seems this is a golden opportunity sent by heaven. No one ever complains about having too much money. With the compensation Shawn gave me, I now had the capital to invest in stocks. I poured $50 million into the market at once. For the next 2 months, I had no mind for anything else, keeping my eyes glued to the stock market. Just waiting for the day to come when I can sell the stocks in my hand, and with over $1 billion added to my bank account, I can truly lie back and enjoy the rest of my life. For the sake of those stocks, I've lost quite a bit of weight over the past 2 months. The next time I saw news about Shawn and Lila was on the front page of the entertainment section. With me out of the way, Lila successfully married the wealthy target she'd been eyeing, Shawn, becoming a rich society wife. At the same time, my former mother-in-law called me, wanting to meet up. Between her and me, there's no affection to speak of. Shawn's arrogant demeanor was inherited from this very woman. During my years in the Cavendish family, aside from Shawn's emotional abuse, this former mother-in-law never missed an opportunity to belittle and make things difficult for me. Still, considering something, I decided to meet her. The chosen location was a high-end cafe. My former mother-in-law remained as elegantly poised as ever. When she saw me in my sportswear, an involuntary look of disdain crossed her face. "No wonder Shawn couldn't stand you and divorced you. Just look at how utterly unsophisticated you are." In the past, every bit of her contempt and coldness would have crushed me. But now, hearing her words and imagining the destitute life awaiting her, I felt nothing but schadenfreude. Truly, what goes around comes around. "Did you call me here just to say this?" Remembering her purpose for today, Gina finally reined in her disdain. "You're so useless. After all these years by Shawn's side, you still couldn't keep his heart, letting that shameless tramp Lila steal him away." Though she'd never liked Clara as a daughter-in-law, compared to Lila, a twice-divorced schemer with a daughter who was clearly after her son's money, she found the latter even more intolerable. Worse still, Lila dared drive a wedge between her and her son. That was absolutely unforgivable. She came today to pit Clara and Lila against each other. She could tell her son still had some feelings for Clara, otherwise, he wouldn't have left her so much in the will. She hadn't known at the time, and by the time she found out, it was too late to stop it. Clara, I still prefer you as my daughter-in-law. Go back to Shawn. With me backing you up, you're still the better match for him. So that's why she called me here today. Listening to my ex-mother-in-law's condescending encouragement to fight Lila, I could only laugh. Mrs. Percy, you're mistaken. I was blind back then to have fallen for such a man. You used to say I wasn't sharp enough. Well, now Lila makes the perfect daughter-in-law for you. A daughter-in-law like her is just what a wicked mother-in-law like you deserves. You're the perfect match for each other. In the past, I obeyed my mother-in-law's every word, rarely going against her wishes. Even when wronged, I silently endured it. She had grown accustomed to flaunting her superiority, never expecting me to speak out like this. Her face flushed crimson with anger as she clutched her chest. Miss Percy, considering we were once mother and daughter-in-law, I'll give you a nice parting gift. I'm sure you'll like it. Clara, don't think you can gloat after swindling so much property from my son. A twice-divorced woman like you, do you really think you'll find anyone better than Shawn? You don't know how to cherish opportunities, and you'll regret this. Watching Gina's furious outburst, I didn't argue. Time would give everyone their answers. Placing the USB drive on the table, I walked away with my head held high, unconcerned about what storms this little device might bring upon their family. I sent a USB drive with identical contents to a journalist. Although the Cavendish family's bankruptcy would make Lila's life difficult, I didn't want her to enjoy even a few months of comfort. That USB contained all of Lila's dirty secrets. After finishing these tasks, I booked a flight abroad overnight. With enough money, I could travel freely, avoiding any retaliation from the Cavendish family. While abroad, I kept tabs on domestic news. The entertainment section reported that Shawn and Lila had a public fight at a social event, sparking rumors of marital troubles before reconciling. There was also gossip from Mrs. Percy about her dissatisfaction with her daughter-in-law. It seemed Lila wasn't having an easy time. I returned just before the Cavendish family went bankrupt. Wearing sky-high heels, I strode in with a row of muscular, 6-foot-tall hunks carrying my luggage and bags, occasionally handing me water or feeding me fruit, pampering me perfectly. Money truly is a wonderful thing. With it, you can have any type of handsome man, each one tender, attentive, and impeccably servile. Clara, I never thought you'd sink so low. Can't you live without me? How could you degrade yourself like this? A voice filled with anguish exploded beside me, startling me. I had originally returned to watch the drama unfold, but unexpectedly ran into Shawn at the airport. Shawn looked utterly haggard, as if he'd aged several years. The handsome young man beside me immediately patted my back gently to comfort me. Darling, did that scare you? Who on earth is so rude and uncouth, shouting like that and frightening you? Shawn's face darkened further at this scene. He strode over and punched the handsome young man who was patting my back. Though gentle and considerate with me, the young man wasn't so patient with Shawn. He instantly returned the punch, making Shawn's lip bleed as he glared at me with hatred. I met Shawn's gaze with perfect composure. Shawn, what's with that look? Do I seem like I can't go on living without you? After leaving a scumbag like you, I've discovered how vibrant and fulfilling life can be. With the breakup money you gave me, I've traveled across magnificent landscapes and enjoyed the company of handsome men everywhere. Only then did I truly understand what joy life holds. Fine, very well. Clara, since I could give you such a good life, I can just as easily take it all back. You'll regret everything you've done. Shawn shot me a cold, ruthless glance before turning away. Compared to before, there was now a more vicious edge to him. I curled my lip, completely unfazed. The Shawn before me was nothing more than a paper tiger with no real threat, soon to come crashing down from his lofty heights into the mire. Besides, compared to a certain someone, Shawn's so-called imposing aura was nothing. At the thought of that person, I couldn't help but shiver. He once warned that if I dared to escape, he'd break my legs and chain me to his side. Thankfully, that man didn't know my true identity. With a world this vast, he'd never find me. Stepping out of the airport with a lineup of handsome men, several luxury cars were already waiting at the entrance. The moment I got into the car, I was pulled into a pair of strong arms. "Clara, had enough fun? You promised to get married, no take-backs now." The man's voice was tender, gentle, and dangerously alluring. Hearing it sent chills down my spine, but it was too late to escape. This was a twisted fate I'd unwittingly entangled myself in during my time abroad, all because I'd gotten drunk at a bar, taken a fancy to a male model named Vincent, and brought him home. A night of spring breeze passed, but who knew the male model wasn't actually a male model? The next day, when I tried to send him away with a check, Vincent's face darkened. He handed me a check 10 times the amount, then pressed closer, teaching me an unforgettable lesson. Later, I learned that this Vincent was no ordinary man. Even abroad, he commanded considerable influence. Such a dangerous man was not someone I could afford to provoke, yet escaping him proved difficult. Finally, after much effort, I seized the chance to slip away unnoticed. Escaping from Vincent's sphere of influence, I could finally enjoy the company of all sorts of handsome men again, free from that domineering man's control. But on my very first day back in the country, Vincent caught me. Vincent, you know, I was drunk back then. Things said in an intoxicated state shouldn't be taken seriously. Besides, I'm just a divorced woman, somewhat pretty but lacking substance, really just common goods. Won't you be magnanimous and let me go? What a joke. Leaving aside how dangerous Vincent is as a person, I still haven't figured out the slightest thing about his background. Having barely crawled out of the pit that was marriage, I absolutely can't afford to fall into another one. Does Clara intend to break our agreement? The man smiled even more gently, yet I instinctively sensed extreme danger. Recalling the ruthless methods of that foreign man, that's not true. How could I break the contract? It's just that I need time. Recognizing the prevailing circumstances, I answered tearfully, what a disaster. How did I end up provoking such a terrifying figure? How can I possibly extricate myself from this? Vincent gazed at this naive woman. Once he, Vincent, had set his sights on her, there was no escape for her in this lifetime. On a certain year, month, and day, a grand wedding ceremony took place by the seaside. By this time, the Cavendish family had already gone bankrupt. After their downfall, Lila immediately divorced Shawn and even tried to abscond with the last remaining scraps of the family's wealth. However, Shawn saw through her scheme and arranged for her to be sold off to an old and ugly man in the slums. Shawn fainted from hunger once again. In his dazed state, he dreamt of many things, events entirely different from this lifetime. When he awoke and looked up at the woman's blissful smile on the giant screen, tears of regret streamed down his face. Not far away, several police officers approached. "Mr. Cavendish, you are suspected of human trafficking. Please come with us for questioning."